mentoring and just community. And that's something that David is trying to do more of, and it's just humbling for me to be able to participate as I participated in a podcast. That's how I met David, as I participated in one of his podcasts, and it was such a good experience, so insightful, that when he mentioned after the podcast, I'm doing this mentoring session. I think we did the podcast when David, maybe, I don't know, December, January. It was like months ago,
I
right?
think December. Yeah, December. Yeah.
December, right? We did it in December, you and I. And then he mentioned in July, I'm going to be doing this mentoring. So back in December, he committed me for today. So even if the weather is nice out there, doesn't matter. I was committed. I was going to show up for David and for all of you too. So thank you, David, again. Very, very, I would say, amazing job what you have been doing for so many, changing lives, basically, of so many Canadian immigrants that, didn't necessarily had or were aware that they had access to these resources. So please keep up the good work that you're doing. And you have a lot of supporters, and me included. So we'll continue to cheer you on. And congratulations on your more recent promotion, at work. That's something that we're also proud of, David. Okay, so the topic of today is, yes, it's kind of, I'm the topic of today, but you are the topic of today, because in reality, I'm going to be sharing a lot of stuff from my own career and personal life, but it's more for you to take whatever you can. And if you leave this session with one or two things, that will be for me, that will be a job well done from all of us. So I'm going to start sharing now my screen. I do have, I think you have disabled screen sharing, David. So you might need to enable me as a co-presenter, if you don't mind.
Yes, I've turned it on. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No worries, no worries. So I'm going to basically share my, okay, I'll share my window. Let me know whenever you guys can see it. Okay. Can you see it now?
We can. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So because I'm sharing my screen, I lost the ability to see your beautiful faces and actually read the chat. But David is going to keep me honest, and he's going to be reading some questions. And then you guys will have the opportunity, of course, to ask any questions as you like, because we have 90 minutes together. Now, this is going to be very, I will say, short and sweet. And I have built Q&A time after every single topic that we're going to be talking about, okay? So the first section is going to be a bit of my career path and supply chain pathways. But in reality, it can be basically just to give you guys an idea of my background. The second point, which I get asked about that a lot, is how to integrate effectively into the Canadian workplace. So we're going to be talking about that. And then again, more Q&A time. I'm going to pause for Q&A. The last topic is something that I call supply chain leadership in the workplace. But in reality, it can be remove the supply chain. What we're going to be talking about is leadership in the workplace, and how can you be given or earned some opportunities so you continue to progress within your career. And then whatever time we have left, more Q&A. Okay, so very interactive. I built this agenda, so it's very interactive when I hear from all of you, because you're also sacrificing your time that you could be out there, enjoying the beautiful weather, so to be here with me. So I want you guys to make the most out of it, of our limited time together. Okay, so let's hit it right on. And you guys don't have any questions, we're gonna go into my bio and the supply chain pathways. So here, I'm just kind of giving you a rundown. So I've been part of multiple industries. I started my career in the newspaper industry, move on to electronics, then the automotive industry, medical devices and diagnostics, consumer packaged goods, and now I'm in the generics pharmaceutical industry. And I mentioned this because, I have had questions in the past that said, I'm in the financial, I don't know if I should go to the financial industry because, once I'm in the financial industry, I cannot move around. And am I going to get stuck in a particular industry? No, you're not going to get stuck in a particular industry. The skills that you're learning where you are going to be, a lot of them are transferable, industry to industry. So in my case, in supply chain, We have, I would say, a high rate of transferable skills. And so I've been able to carry on basically my skill set across the multiple industries. Okay. So no fear about getting stuck on a particular industry. It's kind of more up to the individual. Yes, I have had 18 jobs so far. Now, when I put this slide together, I was like, I guess I have really moved around. But this is how it started. And funny enough, it's like 10 roles in Mexico, 8 roles in Canada. But I started in finance. And you know what? I enjoy that time in finance, but I realized sorry for anyone in the financial industry, but I realized it wasn't for me. You know, like I really needed contact with people. I really like to solve a lot of business problems. I like to collaborate with other, not to say that the finance team they don't do it, but you know, it's more like, you know, related to being very focused and documentation and accuracy. And it's like, you know, like it's really a different skill set. But so I tried it. I didn't like it. Fine, moving on. I was an executive assistant, and I have to tell you a bit of a story there. You know, I was working for a local newspaper, and then I realized, because I was working in the local newspaper, I had I have to say, access to the classified ads, right, before they were actually published to everyone else in the city. So I had a friend in the classified ads, and I was like, you know what, I think it's ready. It's time for me to move on. And she's like, Alma, this is the company you wanted, but they're asking for an EA. They're not asking for someone in, you know, a different, by then I had already finished my BBA. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to go for it, because at the end of the day, this is a company I really wanted to work for. And they didn't have the role I wanted, but they had a role, you know. So for me, it was more related to getting into the company. And then once I was in the company, then 6 months later, a buyer opportunity came up, you know, a vacancy came up. And talking to my boss, the plant manager, he's like, you know what, Alma, go for it. Go for it. You know, if this is something that interests you, I think actually you should go for it. So he was the one that encouraged me to move into this buyer position, which was my first entry point into the supply chain. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is, you know, sometimes if the front door is not open, you go through the side door, you go to the back door. Sometimes you go through a window. It doesn't matter. You go through, okay? So might not be the role you want, might not be the pay you want, but once you're in there and then you start demonstrating your capabilities, then, you know, opportunities start to open up, okay? After this, I went to customer service. This is another story about me wanting to work for a particular company, as I was already a buyer. And I really wanted to work on direct procurement, because I was already in direct procurement. I'm a buyer. My next logical step in my career was being a buyer of direct procurement. At that time, there was actually, sorry, you guys can put your, thank you, your lines on mute. There was actually a vacancy for a direct procurement buyer. This was for General Motors. So I applied for it. I got interviewed, and then I got a call from HR saying, you know what, Alma, like, sorry, the manager had to move on, and he had to make his selection from the people he had already seen. So sadly, you got a little bit late, you know, in the hiring process. So he was not able to see you, but I mean, thank you for, you know, coming and whatever. So this is what happened. And a month later, I get a call from the same HR individual saying, well, you know what? We don't have the opening anymore. It went to someone else. But I mean, we have this customer service account manager. So is that something that you will be interested? And again, same philosophy. Yeah, was I totally like blown away by being in customer service? To be honest, between all 40 of you and no, I guess this is going to be watched later. So hundreds of people. No, I was not. Sorry. I was not really interested, but at the end of the day, again, philosophy is like you get in and then you start showing, and then, you know, you start showing what you're capable, and then opportunities come. So I said yes to the opportunity. And then 6 months later, 3 people from direct procurement, 3 team members moved on. One was pregnant, one was promoted, one left the company. So there was 3 vacancies at the same time. And I talked to my boss. It's like, you know what, I appreciate customer service, but what I really wanted was direct procurement. Would you mind if I go for it? She's like, no, absolutely. You know, you have nothing to lose. I interviewed and I got the job. You know, so this is where, you know, I got the job in direct procurement. Then after that, I went to a different company, medical devices, Johnson & Johnson. When I was doing, you know, supply chain planning, I was promoted to plan scheduler, then promoted to master scheduler. Then I was asked to be in an ERP implementation, and then I finally got, I would say, my first real people leadership opportunity as a manager of supply chain planning. So this was my career in Mexico. And then all of a sudden, when I was a manager of supply chain planning, my husband and I decided to immigrate, and we're going to get into that in the next section. So let's pause on the personal side and continue on the professional side. But the second section will have more of my personal story. Here in Canada, I started as a project manager of new products and systems. Then within the same company, Johnson & Johnson, so the same company I was working for in Mexico, I landed a role within Canada, different sector though. This was medical devices, and this is consumer packaged goods. After that, a couple of years went by, you know, and as you can see, I was already a manager, people leader. Here, I became a project manager. So no people reporting to me, more of a tech professional, but it got us what my husband and I wanted, which was to move our family to Canada. So all in all, I was ready and I was willing to take a bit of a step back in my career in order for us to, you know, be here in Canada. After that, you know, you work really, really, really hard and you give a lot of results, and we're going to get into those traits in a minute. But then I got promoted back to being a manager of portfolio and project management. Then I went into supply and trade customization, then as a senior manager. And then Apotex came calling with an opportunity I couldn't say no to, which was, you know, going to this manufacturing facility, and, you know, you're going to be directing supply chain in that facility. And it was 1,000 people manufacturing facility, and I was the highest ranked woman at that site, you know, and it was back to manufacturing, which I loved. So really, a Canadian company, I just couldn't say no. You know, and after 14 years with Johnson & Johnson, I decided to say yes to Apotex, which is what, you know, I've been doing the last, 9 years. So Director of Global Supply Operations and Systems and Data Management, Global Director of Supply Planning. And then my current role as of February this year, you know, is in the logistics space. Okay, so I actually got a little tired talking about all these things, but, you know, to be fair, it's a 25 plus years career. So it's kind of looks like a lot, but it's like over a span of 25 years. So what I wanted to leave you with is this ladder progression versus lattice pathways. And the ladder progression is something that is very linear, right? You see it, you start with as an associate, and then you start, you know, you move to a supervisor, and then a manager, and then a director of the same function. And this gives you some advantage, but the lattice pathway, you know, which is, you can see that I was kind of meandering my way around multiple sections or areas of the supply chain. It does bring you, and you can see here, like a stronger foundation, because you're able to understand the business from multiple angles, wearing all the hats that you have been able to, you know, wear for the last number of years of your career. Okay, so it does give you, you know, more flexibility to go to a particular area or that you're not necessarily an expert of, but because you have had a track record of success, learning roles that were not really, I would say, linear, it was more related to your lateral growth, people are more willing to give you a chance. Okay, so this is Q&A time. So this is the time for you guys to ask me any questions you might have. So David, over to you.
All right. So if you have any question that you'd like to ask Alma directly, please feel free to ask. But if not, I can just take one of the questions that were sent in earlier. So we'll just wait for a few seconds. Please, if you have any question, there's a reaction button at the bottom right corner of your screen. Please use that as to raise up your hand. You click on the hand raising button like I've done, and then we would get to you. So if you have any question, please raise up your hand and we'll take your question. But
as a team is, I guess, oh, my namesake has a question.
Okay. So Alma, Alma Achonu, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alma. Love the name. The question is, what were the challenges that you faced in going from one industry to the other?
Alma, and I love how it sounds like I'm saying my own name. So yes, great name for sure. So looking back, as I was moving towards like industry to industry, I don't think necessarily I came into the different industries thinking that I was going to have a hard time. I guess I already knew I was going to have I would say a steep learning curve. Even the last one, pharmaceuticals, right? I have never done pharmaceuticals in my life. I have to be honest, some of these meetings at the beginning, half of the things were going over my head. I didn't even know what people were talking about. I just keep like writing down furiously all these terms that they were using. It's like, I'm going to have to ask my own team, what do they mean with like, PV? What do they mean with API? What do they mean with like, all these things that I was like, what is this? Can someone explain to me? But I wasn't going to derail the meetings, right? So I allowed the meetings to proceed. Everyone was doing their jobs, but just understanding the terminology of what, what I used to use before and what they were using, even the supply chain terms were a little different. The metrics were calculated differently. So I would say that it was like the steep learning curve and the willingness to put in the time to get up that learning curve as fast as I could, right? Because this is a fast moving train. Like they were not going to be waiting for me, right? So I had to get myself up to speed as much as possible. And I relied on my team a lot, my peers, my direct reports. I rely a lot on them to help me. And I was always more in the camp of, if I don't know something, I'm going to ask. Even if I sound like, oh, she probably should know this already. I really don't mind. I'm going to ask the question anyway, because I rather ask the question and get that knowledge than try to save face. It doesn't help anyone, so definitely lots of challenges, Alma, but I would say the top one was like the how fast I had to learn, as I was expected to provide or drive business results at the same time as I was learning these industries. Is it possible? Of course, absolutely. As you can see, I'm a living proof. It's very much possible, but I would say it's probably not for the faint of heart, because there's high expectations of you, and on top of that, you need to understand the mechanics of a new industry, and you need to adjust to a new team, a new company, a new job. So definitely takes a lot of investment. Okay, I will say, but if you're committed, you can do it.
Thank you so much, Alma,
for
that detailed answer. So next is Alisa. Alisa, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, thank you so much. Well, I apologize. I'm on the Zoom of my daughter's account, but my name is Olga Blaud and I'm from Hellman Logistics, so sorry for this. I would like to ask my question. I'm also from supply chain.
Hello.
But this is
hello. You're cutting in and out. We can't hear you very clearly. Can you ask the question again?
Yes. So there is there is an opinion that supply chain, right? It's men's business. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of women on leading positions in this industry. So I would like Alma to share maybe, your experience, how you're tackling this issue, and maybe to give some guidance on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question for sure, and I can see it, but I can also see it changing a little bit, and it's up to us as leaders, to hire or push for hiring, or at least have a mixed pool of candidates so we can fill the ranks with a more equal distribution. Is supply chain specifically for men, or men thrive more in the chaos of the supply chain? I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I have always loved to bring order to the chaos. Not the chaos itself, but I mean, I like to bring order to the chaos. So I have enjoyed my time in the supply chain. I thought, to your point, sometimes I find myself being the only woman in the room, and it's still. Right. It's still prevalent. I would say still prevalent, but what gives me hope is to see so many leaders, and I interact with a lot of leaders on LinkedIn that are within the supply chain that are women. And, most recently, Supply Chain Digital got an issue out of the top 100 women in global supply chain, right? And it was amazing for me to see all these very distinguished women making inroads into the supply chain. So I would say that it's kind of a job amongst ourselves as women, maybe not to hold ourselves back, because it would have been so easy, and I would have saved myself so much trouble and so many migraines and and so many sweat, tears, and blood if I would have just stayed as a buyer in direct procurement, which is how I started my career. And actually, I have to say the manager I had at the time is still a manager of indirect procurement, and the company I left her 20 plus years ago. And that's a choice, right? That's a choice she made. That's a choice I made, not to always keep looking and growing and challenging myself. But I guess we're going to talk about the family part for later on. But I think women, sometimes we can tend to hold ourselves back a little more, from going for those leadership roles and not necessarily believing in our capability. Men don't seem to have that problem. Sorry, David. So it's more related to like our own ability to say yes and take the risk, right?
Yeah, and thank you so much, Alma, for echoing that. And one thing I know for sure, and if you're on this call and you're not following Alma yet, and you want to be in supply chain, I'm sorry, but you're missing out on a lot, because Alma is one person who does not just talk, but she walks the talk. So what she's telling you right now, she's making way for other women. I remember a private conversation we had about how she went to this network, this event, and she saw this woman who was struggling and she didn't believe in herself. And Alma was able to convince her to say that, you know what, you have the capacity and you have what it takes to actually succeed in this role. And this woman eventually got a really good job. So I'm saying all of this not because Alma is here, but because that is who she is. And that's why I want you to go check it out for yourself, see for yourself. And so follow her. If you are not on LinkedIn, she posts a lot of amazing and interesting things. So thank you. So interesting things. So thank you so much, Alma, for all you do. So the next is Stella. So Stella, please unmute yourself and ask your question. And after Stella, then Alma can continue. Then we'll take more questions.
Hi, Alma. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. So I am working in the food industry. I currently do quality assurance, and I have gone on mat leave, and I decided to take a 1-year supply chain program. So because you have a bird's eye view of the supply chain profession, and because there's so many different, there's demand planning, there's supply planning, there's so many different areas of supply chain, I was wondering which role should I apply for if I want a more technical role?
Hi, Stella. Thank you for your question. I was looking forward to meet you at this event. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for all the support you show, David. So that's a great question, and in reality, you know, is whatever fits your career path and your interest. And if you want a more technical role, a couple of roles came to mind right away. So one is related to data, and the other one is related to analytics, which are also, I would say, pretty hot, up and coming areas of the supply chain. We're fighting for visibility, especially in COVID times. It was I would say quite challenging to come up with an end-to-end visibility of our supply chain of pharmaceuticals, but we got there. It was definitely not a walk in the park. But there's definitely up and coming roles in those two, I would say, two areas of the supply chain. But the skills that you have, you know, in the finance, it's just a matter of maybe position these skills and these capabilities in a way that are seen as transferable, Stella, into the supply chain. Because now you're going to have the education check, right? But in reality, sometimes I have to be honest, we do look for some experience in the supply chain, but we also understand that there's professionals that are changing roles. So I have someone that we ended up hiring, and that someone used to be in the supply chain many months ago, and decided to go into a human resources career path, and that's what he stayed for 5 years. And then he decided he wanted back into supply chain, but because some time had passed, etc., we kind of slotted him in a role where we felt he was going to be the most successful. And just this year, I was able to promote him as the manager of the area. So he joined us as a supervisor, and he was fine with it because he wanted to kind of refresh his knowledge. And then after a couple of years now, he's the manager of the area. But it doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, like the past experiences that you had. If you at the interview can show transferable skills and capabilities, I think you will be very successful.
Okay, thank you very much, Alma.
You're welcome, Stella. Okay, so you guys tell me, can you still see my screen, David?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'm in the integration into the Canadian workplace. So a little bit more about myself now that we're gonna move into the personal side. I was born, I was raised, I studied, I worked, I married, all of it in my hometown of Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, Mexico. I lived there for most of my life. So this is like a little picture of Mexico, and this is Ciudad Juárez right at the top, and right across the border with El Paso, Texas. And if you have, read the news, you would have known that Juárez is maybe not the safest place to raise kids. So because of that, we decided
Hello? Hello?
I think yeah, I can hear you. I think maybe our internet froze. Just give it few seconds. She should be back on.
Sure. Thank you for your comments.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I wasn't just sure if it's my issue. Thank you for replying.
Okay. Okay. Hello. So, sorry about that, but while we're waiting for Alma, if you have any question, please feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll get to those questions. Um, so for Orelua and Bali, who asked questions earlier, we will get to them.
Hello, I'm back.
Very
Sorry,
soon.
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back. It's just the internet.
Welcome
It's
back.
the internet. I'm not gonna say the name of the internet provider. But okay, so let me just share my screen back. Sorry. Where did I lose you guys? At the beginning?
When you were talking about the beginning.
Yeah. So
when you
like
were
here?
talking about your own. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I was just saying that I was born in Juarez. I lived there most of my life, and the situation in the home country had been deteriorating rapidly since the 2000s. So my husband and I decided to look for a life somewhere else, and that somewhere else was Canada. Okay, so back in 2002, I started my permanent residency application under the so-called Federal Skilled Worker Program. And 3 years later, the permanent residency was granted. So this is where we used to send a bunch of paperwork to the Canadian government, and they had to process each and everyone's file before they give you an answer. During all that time, for about 4 years, I was monitoring openings on, I don't know, maybe Workopolis, something like that, like whatever was hot back then. And I was monitoring openings within my own company, Johnson & Johnson, or just in Canada in general. So back in 2006, I was able to identify an opening with J&J Canada as a project manager. And as I already mentioned to you guys, I was already a people leader back in Mexico, but we wanted to come. So I took a chance and applied. I interviewed, I accepted an offer. I arrived alone in Montreal 3 months after the first interview. Johnson & Johnson was in the middle of merging 3 companies of 3 consumer packaged good companies. So my family couldn't relocate to Toronto after 4 months after I arrived. So I had to leave my 2-year-old daughter behind, my 7-year-old son, and my husband. So we have to live apart for a few months, but tough times. But I knew it was going to be we didn't know at that time how long the merger was going to take, but it didn't make sense for them to be relocated to Montreal, only to have to relocate back to Toronto, right? So we had to make that work. Took me about a couple of years to be promoted back into a people leader role at J&J Canada. Then I got a couple of years later, I got promoted to senior manager. Back in 2011, we acquired Canadian citizenship for my two kids, my husband and I. At that time, we already had a 3rd daughter. So we have 1 son, currently 22, and 2 daughters, 16 and 13. So my last daughter was born in Markham, Ontario. In 2012, I accepted the job offer from Apotex and then took on new roles. And as you already saw, I was promoted. So I ran into several challenges where I was trying to integrate myself into the Canadian workplace. And I'm going to share my challenges with you guys. And I'm hoping some of you will empathize with those challenges. My first challenge was the lack of understanding about the Canadian culture. And let me give you an example. Something I did during my first week in my new and shiny Canadian job. I saw the door of my boss's office was open, and I wanted to talk to her. So I just basically barged in into her office, and it just kind of stood there. And she was sitting with someone. She was talking to someone, and basically I was ignored by maybe for 3 minutes. And finally, she looked up at me and said, "Yes, Alma, can I help you?" And I felt like I had already, I felt like I intruded into the conversation. And then I realized later that, and then this is something I learned, by experience, is like you basically stand and then the doors, like close to the door, and then kind of wait to be acknowledged. And then people kind of wave you in, and it's like, yeah, hi, hello, come in. Or if that person is with someone, you finish respectfully until that whatever they're talking about finishes, and then they look at you and it's like, okay, yeah, how can I help you? But you don't just barge into people's offices, you know, something that I learned. What did I overcome? What did I do to overcome the challenges? So first of all, I was observing. I was observing how other people were, you know, interacting with other people. I was open to feedback and change, you know. So my boss mentioned a couple of things to me, Alma, like you will be more effective if you do this, you do that. So, you know, being open to feedback also helps. The small talk. I'm pretty sure all of you have either experienced the small talk or heard about the small talk, but small talk is important. Maybe at that time I didn't give it the importance I give it now, but the small talk, because I was coming from more like a US based culture where time is money and we don't have any time to be wasted, et cetera, et cetera. I was more used to getting right into the point, getting into the details, getting into the topic, being very efficient with my time. Then I realized that the small talk is an opportunity for you to build your relationships with other people and to connect at a deeper level. So, and that also, I would say, encouraged me to share a little more about me. It's like when I was asking someone, how was your weekend? Did you go to that hockey game that you wanted to go? And it's like, how was the graduation? How was your daughter's graduation? You get to know them as people, you know, as a person with a life, you know, outside work. And it's also beneficial for the work relationship. Something that I had to do is to learn to better express my ideas to influence other people. And this one, you can always take it two ways, right? You can say, well, so-and-so is basically taking the idea that I had already put on the table, repackaging that idea that I gave, and then taking the credit. And you can be resentful, not to say that I wasn't, but you know, you can take that road and be resentful and then maybe not even share ideas. Or you can admire the person and study the person. It's like, how did he do it? How did he take my idea and then repackage it? So guess what? I took the second road. So I was observing how they were doing it, and then I started doing it myself. You know, the only difference is I gave credit to the person I took the idea from. I was like, yeah. Brian already said this, but I have something to add. And if we do this, this is what we can get to, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I had to learn to better express my ideas. I would say because I was already working with a lot of people from the US back in Mexico, I didn't necessarily have lots of language challenges, but I have seen Canadian immigrants struggle to find their words, struggle to, I will say, express things properly. So what I did that worked for me, I'm not saying that you should do it, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And because I'm a reader, I've always been a reader. I like to read a lot. But then as kids, you know, are growing up, I don't have enough time to read physical books. So what I did is exchange my commute, my music or the news. I exchanged that for audiobooks. So I was listening on my commute back and forth. I was listening to audiobooks, and that helped me a lot with expanding my vocabulary and trying to incorporate other words, and also with pronunciation, etc. And then I observe too, again, as you need to observe how other people present their ideas more effectively. At the very beginning of my career in Canada, people didn't know me, and it's not personal. It's just they don't know what you're capable of, and so what are they gonna give you? I would say the meaty projects, and what are they gonna give you? You know, that promotion that you want. They don't know what you're capable of doing, right? So what I had to do, you know, to counteract that challenge is to basically say yes to every difficult project that I was assigned to me. In projects where other people had failed, in projects where no one wanted it, I was always willing to do it. Now, there's a risk, there's a bit of a gamble there, but if you trust in your abilities to get the job done, then it's going to pay off for you, because you have to have that self-confidence that said, you know what? I'm going to find a way to get these to their goal line. It doesn't matter what I have to do, how many hours I have to work. I'm going to invest, and I'm going to make sure that I get the results I need. And this example I have here, you know, I was already on the mat leave. As I said, my third daughter, my third child, in this case, a daughter, was born here in Markham, Ontario. And I think I was on month 3 or 4 of the mat leave. And I got a call from my boss, my former boss, I will say the boss that, one of the bosses I wanted to eventually report to. So to simplify the matter, because it's a long story, but then I got a call from a leader that I respected, that I appreciated. And she said, Alma, like, are you available? Can we go and, meet up for lunch? So we met up for lunch. And she basically said, Alma, I need you to come. Like, the leadership team would like for you to be back, and you will be taking on this big and meaty project that other people had already failed. But, we trust that it will be much easier for us to give it to someone that is already part of the company that tried to bring a contractor. So we said, why not? Give it a go. Maybe Alma will be willing to be back. And I was willing to be back because, number one, in Mexico, you get 43 days before and after, or 42 or 43 days before and after the baby is born. So by that time, I had already gotten 4 months, so it's all about perspective, right? So it was like, oh, I already got, 120 days. So I was already farther ahead. And then I negotiated that for the next 3 months, I was going to be back only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I was gonna take Monday, Friday off as vacation time. So kind of eased my way back into work, and that's what I did. And I ended up learning a new system I knew nothing about, and giving 40 different training sessions to 140 users, and I made the project happen. And I don't say like I control my own destiny, but basically if I would have said no to this assignment, then I honestly wouldn't known what I was going to come back to, right? When I came back from mat leave. Again, I'm not suggesting that anyone is going to take these decisions, but I'm speaking of what I did and worked out for me in my career, okay? Another challenge was that I needed to gain the support of my coworkers. Yes, sorry. Okay. So sorry, you guys can put your phone on mute, that will be great. So needing to gain the support of my coworkers, I made an effort to get to know them. I had lunch with them. I offered my help. I tried to build strong relationships, and that, when I needed the help, they were there for me. And then the last challenge I want to highlight to you guys is that I was used to a more hierarchical, more formal workplace. And I found that the Canadian environment is pretty democratic and inclusive. There's no sir, there's no madam. And then, now that I'm a leader, a people leader, I ensure I pull from my team to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. And we are expected to be proactive as employees and engaged. And actually, most of my bosses have welcomed when I have disagree with them and put my points of view on the table, maybe not in public, but on a one-on-one basis. So they expect us to have open and honest conversations, okay? So I'm gonna stop right there, and for more QA, more QA time. So please feel free.
All right, earlier on, Orolua sent in a question. So while I'm taking Orolua's question, I would encourage Bali. Maybe Bali will go next, and then Jatin. I will take Jatin and Orolua's question. Then Bali will go next. Then we'll take one more person, and then Alma will continue. So the first question is, what kind of reskilling did you have to do when you started working in Canada?
Sorry, David, it's like, I think someone had the line not on mute, and it cut out a little bit. Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so the question is, what kind of reskilling did you have to do when you started working in Canada?
What kind of what, sorry?
Reskilling. What kind of
reskilling? Sorry. I was like, not a very common word, reskilling. Okay, reskilling. So on the reskilling side, I'm gonna have to say, because I went to a new area of project management, I didn't have any certification in project management, but I have gotten a few certifications in my life, but all these certifications had a purpose in mind. It's not just as I just went to collect acronyms next to my name. That was not my motivation. My motivation was to make sure that I got the right tools in my toolkit when I needed them. In this case, I was already maybe 2 years into project management when I decided to go through the PMI, project management professional certification. So that was one of the things where I had to reskill myself to meet the demands of the business. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Alma, for answering that. All right, the next question is from Orolua, and the question is, how did you know that PM roles were the ideal fit for you after discovering that finance was not for you? And to part B of that question is, what qualifies you as an ideal PM candidate?
Okay, that's a great question. And you know what, how I knew? I tried it. There's really honestly one way to know if you like it or not. Try it. If you don't like it, you're going to pick up some skills from that role. You're going to pick up some lessons learned. And then at least you know if you liked it or not. Other than that, you know, that's how I ended up with 18 jobs, you know, because I have really tried to, 18 jobs are only 6 companies. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of jobs once I say it out loud, but, you know, it's within the same companies. But try it. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Now, what qualifies as a good PM? I would say someone that can communicate effectively, someone that is a collaborator, someone that has attention to detail, someone that cares about others. And I'm sorry, like, I know this is like, what has caring about others need to do with being a good project manager? Here's what I'm talking about. Let me give you an example. You know, when I was a project manager, I had 2 choices. I can wait for the larger, I would say, meeting where we were reviewing the status of our new product launches to put someone on the spot and said, well, so-and-so didn't send me the update on time. So I don't have, like, I have a blank slide here because so-and-so didn't send me the update. I could have done that. I never did, but I could have. What I say care about others is, you know, care about your peers, care about the people you're working with, because I could have done that maybe once or twice, but then I would have burned my relationships. I would have burned the bridge, right? So what I did instead is, like, I called the person a few days before the meeting and say, you know what, I have noticed you haven't uploaded your slide. You know, I don't want to necessarily like present a blank slide at the meeting. So could you please try to get me your slide as soon as possible? It's like, Alma, is that okay if I give it to you like the next day? Sorry, I have been off. I was sick. You know, I couldn't do it. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Please send it to me. So that's what I meant with caring about others. Like, don't put your peers or anyone else on the spot when you're trying to drive results, because those results, you can drive them, but they're gonna be short-lived because no one is gonna want to work with you. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Alma.
You're welcome.
So next is Bali. Is Bali there?
Hey there. Hey, Alma.
Hey, Bali.
Hey, I am in your LinkedIn connection for a long time. So this is the very first time we are in a like platform. So I have a few questions. First of all, I have written my SCMP designation exam this year. I'm waiting for the result. And from my last 2 years study and my past experience, I'm now concerned how is the post-pandemic leadership will be. So will there be any massive change in leadership in terms of entering into leadership role for us who, I do have leadership role back home in Bangladesh, but not here. I'm not a manager or not in a leadership role. So I'm thinking if AI or all the cutting edge technology will just remove some positions in near future.
No, we still need people to run the supply chain. So definitely, I don't see that happening. You know, like, yeah, we're moving towards a lot of automation, especially in our reporting and analytics. I'm a big driver at Apotex to make sure that we're now upscaling, and upskilling people in areas and enabling them with insights and analytics. But on the other hand, what I really want is to free up some of my people's time so they can tackle other things that we want them to tackle. Not necessarily to replace any of them, because to be fair, we rely on their support and experience and knowledge a lot. But I just want to make sure that they have the bandwidth to tackle, let's say, other continuous improvement projects, or to upgrade the system that we have, and not being working crazy hours and work a regular work day. But no, we still need people.
All right. Thank you so much, Alma, for that. So, Bali, if you can hold the remaining questions till later, I would let Leticia ask a question, and then Alma can continue after that. Then after the next Q&A session, Bali, you can ask your question. So Leticia, if you can please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much. Hi, Alma. Thank you so much for this event. And I have to say that I'm very impressed by your career profile. And so my question is that seeing that you had many roles during the year, and also that you took many different projects. So my question is, if you ever experienced imposter syndrome, and if yes, how did you overcome it?
Okay, no, that's hola. So yes, I will say to that 100%. I think I will be not truthful to myself and you if I tell you that I have never felt like an imposter. No, I have felt like an imposter many times in my life, and even more recently. I'll give you an example. Even now, you might see a lot of things, and you might see a lot of accomplishments, and you might see like the glittery side, but still to this day, in my past, it might cross through my mind. I was invited. I'm part of I'm a supporter of the Women in Leadership program at Apotex. And something that happened recently, I got invited by the senior director of HR in the US to be in a panel. And it was a leadership panel. And I noticed that I was the only director there. It was my boss's boss, the EVP of Global Supply Operations, and a VP of New Product Launch, in our legal counsel, and all these very, like, the company president on the US, and me. And I was like, I'm going to be honest, maybe for a minute, I did wonder, am I in the right group? Because look at all these accomplished people and, all these executives and me. But I said, you know what? If the senior director of HR invited me, it's because she wants me there. So I'm going to stop thinking about it, and I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes to being there. And you know what? We had a great time. So I have to say that I would like to give you hope that it will ever go away, but I don't know. I think we always have our doubts, and it's just a matter of, for me, it's more like how quickly can I get over myself and just kind of stop thinking about it in that sense and just say yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Leticia.
All right, thank you, Alma. And I would say you can continue, and then we'll take more questions during the next Q&A session.
Sounds good. So let me go back to the presentation. You guys still see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in this one, I titled again, Supply Chain Leadership in the Workplace, but in reality, it can be leadership in the workplace only. What are the key skills that we need in the workplace? Communication, resiliency, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, decision-making, teamwork, etc. So sorry, I should have mentioned, you guys want a copy of this presentation, just send an email to David. I already gave him a PDF. Okay, so you guys can have a copy. Absolutely. And I actually added some bonus material in the appendix. I'll share with you in a sec, but it's all in the appendix. So you get some more value out of this session. Now, some examples of job requirements for some of you guys that are job seekers. You're going to see a lot of this, and this is something that I infuse into my own job postings for my own team. We want people to get things done, communication skills, evolving and moving goals, influence, resiliency, enthusiasm, presentation, facilitation. As I was mentioning, analytics, reports, and dashboards and scorecard is a pretty hot topic. Analytical, Excel, database, time management, system experience, and some certifications related to your profession. Expectations from Canadian employers: integrity, achieving results, no procrastination. You know, you commit to get something done at a certain date. Not to say that we don't understand what you can't, but this is where the communication comes in, you know, and said, you know what, Alma, I committed to give this to you by Friday, and today is Wednesday. So you're letting me know 2 days ahead. I cannot make it by Friday because I have 3 other things going on. Like either, like if that person works in my team, like that person might say, if you are okay with not getting this other report until Monday, then I can fit it in. Other than that, can I get this done by Monday? And you know what? 99 times out of 100 is fine. It's not life or death situations. But communication and alerting people of you running behind goes a long way. Okay? Being creative, being a collaborator, communication, clear communication, tenacity, acting on development feedback, driving change and innovation, self-development. That's something that we as employers, we really appreciate when people spend the time developing themselves. And you guys clearly get the point. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So this is probably more for someone that is going to watch the presentation later. But because of all of you are here, I'm confident that you are focusing on your self-development. Treating people with respect and dignity. I have to say that back in Mexico, sometimes we might go and you know, like joke around, and it's, you know, it's like jokes and it's in good spirits, whatever. Not so much here. Not so much here. You really need to make sure that whatever joke you're trying to make, you're not going to offend people, or you're not going to alienate people. And it's like, it's a bit different dynamic, I will say. When you're at home, you can basically do whatever you want, but in the workplace, you know, make sure that you're not making offensive comments or, you know, disrespectful comments. Being open to other people's ideas, have a positive attitude goes a long way. The perseverance, using facts, the diversity, and you know, Canada is a melting pot. My team, 140 of them, come from different cultures, different backgrounds, but as long as you, again, go to this point of respect and dignity, then you should be fine. People are usually willing to share with you details and traditions from their own cultures, because, you know, we're excited. Like, I'm excited every time I have to, people ask me stuff about Mexico. I can keep going on and on and on. But, you know, people are usually willing to share. If you're really curious and you want to learn more about the different cultures, I would say people love to share. And, you know, seek to continuously improve, be someone you can rely upon. And I leave I would say the best for last, where as Canadian employers, in general, we're being driven by objectives. And your objectives are something that you have to achieve, or again, ask for help when you're not making progress, and communicate that effectively. But if you want to continue to grow within your company, then you definitely need to deliver results. Okay. The traits of great leaders, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to leave it here so you guys can read it later. You know, maybe a couple, you know, promote the ideas of others. You know, the fact that I'm the leader of the department doesn't really mean I have the best ideas. I do have ideas. Not all of them are the best, but, you know, I do share them. And then if other people share ideas that I like best, then we're like, yeah, let's do what Scott said. Okay, let's do what Patricia said. Let's do what, you know, Steve said. You know, it really shouldn't be a requirement that because you're the leader, you have to drive your own ideas. And I'm going to pick this one too. Deliver hard messages with clarity and compassion. We need to remind ourselves we're talking and dealing with people, and we have feelings. And so even when you need to have a difficult conversation, you still need to deliver the messages with compassion. But you can read that. You can read this later. I want to get into the Q&A. And this Q&A time, just want to say that before we get into the last section, you know, the success or the perceived success, you know, is 90% of that success is combination of failures and picking yourself back up and learning those lessons and persevering and working hard and believing in yourself and keep going, right? And then it's not stopping for anything, and just being very, very focused. And eventually you're gonna get where you wanna get, right? And this is the Iceberg Illusion, which I really love. This is what people don't see necessarily, right? All your sacrifices, or your failure, all your disappointments, but also all your dedication, all the hard work and good habits. They only see this, and it's like, oh. And I do get that a lot on LinkedIn. It's like people messaging, oh, I admire your career, and it's like, I really like what you have done. It's like, honestly, but if you would have known all the things that I have to do, maybe you wouldn't like it as much. But to each his own. Okay, so more Q&A time. This is it. This is the end of the presentation. But I'm just gonna flash this quickly. In the appendix, I'm giving you guys more bonus materials and why networking is so important. How can you get an opportunity to interview? Why networking is important to your success. How to network with supply chain professionals. Other networking resources that you can use. Questions that are being asked at real interviews. Okay, so I'm giving you guys lots of extra material. How do you prepare for an interview, and all the things to consider, right? So, and this is something that you guys could absolutely get, asking David for a copy, okay, of the presentation. So thank you very much, and let's take it home with lots of questions. Feel free.
All right, thank you so much, Alma, for that great presentation. Thank you for sharing your journey and your story with us. While Leticia was asking a question, and while you were answering the question, a few questions came through. So, but before I ask the question, I know Bali said he has a few questions. So if you can.
Oh yeah, Bali had to run. You know, he said
okay.
like. Okay. Yeah, Bali said, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I need to leave now. He'll catch me later, probably on LinkedIn.
Okay, all right.
So let's carry on.
Okay, so thank you so much to those who have sent in their questions. So the first one I will ask from the list of questions. So Alma, I'll get to you. Let me just take this one question, then I'll get to you. So the first question is, how did you manage to have kids and yet succeed in your career?
Sorry, would you mind putting your lines on mute? I hear some noise.
Yes,
how do I manage to have 3 kids and a successful career? I will say that I married well, you know, because without the support of my husband, and I mentioned this to him because he always comes up, whatever interview I'm doing, whatever article, whatever podcast, he always comes up. In reality, he does have, I need to give him lots of credit, you know, because he used to be a nurse back in Mexico. When we moved to Canada and I started developing within my career, we make a conscious decision that he was going to stay at home and I was going to try to focus on doing the best I could over there at work. And that partnership has continued over the last 14 years. So again, I'm not removing any credit for myself, you know. But let's say 50-50, you know, like if I had to really focus so much on the kids and we don't have anyone else here, it's only my husband and I with the three I want to call it children. They're really all kind of grown up already. But my three kids, I couldn't do what I have done, you know, to be realistic, you know, I don't know if I could have. But having him here at home, like anchoring the family, really enabled me to take on more opportunities and say yes to more challenging projects. Okay, so credit to Jerry.
Thank you. So Alma, you can ask your question.
Alrighty, I had a question. Of all the 25 years you had career-wise, what is the top most valuable lesson that you'll say comes top of mind?
Okay, so this is this is a tough one, you know, there's not been many lessons, but I would say that maybe the biggest lesson that I have gotten was it to say yes to things, you know, to take a risk and not to and give it all as you're taking the risk, and don't go in halfway, and don't go in with doubts about your capabilities and you're going to be able to make it, not make it. And doesn't, like, yeah, the self-doubt might be there, but try to you know, put it in the back of your mind and believe that you're going to get there. So I would say saying yes had gotten me more benefits than was also lots of you know, challenges to overcome, but it has gotten me more benefits than maybe saying no. So I would say yes to continue to grow and continue to take on more opportunities.
Well, thank you so much, Alma, for that. Alma, do you have more questions? Do you have any more questions?
Oh, you mean me?
Yes, yes.
No, I do not. That is it.
Okay, all right. So I'll take.
Thank you, Alma.
I'll take one more question from the questions that were sent in earlier. Then I'll get to Dania. Dania raised the hand first, and Paul. So the question I have here, Alma, for you, Alma, is that the person said, I have been working for a while, in bracket 2 years, in different field that I was working back home, from environmental field to financial. Even though I got some Canadian certifications, it was difficult to get a job in the environmental field. I would like to try again to see if I can get a job in that field, but my resume now is showing different work experience in the financial field. How can I tailor my resume and try to get a job in the environmental field when I work in the financial field?
Yeah, I think on that one, David, I kind of already answered that when I was giving an example on, you know, someone that kind of moved into HR and but needed to be back in the supply chain. Focus on transferable skills. That's what I will say. As you're logging in, you know, your experiences, try to match as close as possible. We know sometimes that as Canadian immigrants, we have to take other roles, not necessarily on the sector or the area you wanted to work. So most employers will understand that you took a bit of a detour, but you say you express your passion, you know, for the environmental field and said, you know what, I tried this. I actually kind of respect that. I tried this to see if that was something that I could commit to, but then I realized that environmental is my true passion, right? So kind of instead of trying to look at it as a flaw or as an obstacle, I will leverage it. I will leverage it and say, you know what, this made me confirm that environmental was my true passion.
Right. Thank you so much for that. So Dania, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Dania.
Hi, Alma.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's surprising that you still remember me, because I know the first time I saw you, it was, I think, a very cold day in somewhere 2019 when I came to Apotex and Access Speed Mentoring. And firstly, I also want to thank David for arranging this. And thanks, I find it very fortunate that I'm able to be present today and hear Alma and her stories and her entire personal professional trajectory. So just one thing before the question I wanted to note, give out there out loud, is that the lasting impression you made on me, Alma, that day at Apotex Speed Mentoring was amazing, because you were one of the first mentors I ever met arriving in Canada. I think probably the first or second mentor I ever spoke to face-to-face, and you just taught me that being confident, being always present in what you're doing, whether you're a mentee or a mentor, being there with a smile and being comfortable and making the other person comfortable is very important. till this day, I follow that. And I recently thought of it when I saw one of your posts on LinkedIn. I understood that, okay, it was you who really taught me that, because I don't think before that I had that kind of an outlook. And thank you so much for that. And yeah, just coming to the question so that I don't take too much of the time. Since you started with a finance background and you have come a long way being a mentor of yourself in different domains within supply chain and otherwise. So what is one thing or a couple of things that stands out from your previous early mentors that you can say you applied in your professional life, workspace, anything that you can just come up with? It'll be great to hear. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. And how can I forget you? You know, you were unforgettable. You know, it's I was very honored to be part of that mentoring event with United Way, and you were one of the ladies there, and you and some of the ladies made an impression on me. And I was happy to reach out after, you know, in the hopes of working together, you know, and at the end my team decided to give someone from that event an opportunity, and that person is still working with us 2 years later. So definitely that was an event that paid off. And something that I would say, like a leader that I have that we're still friends to this day, I don't know, 20 years later, is that, and this wasn't my first people leadership opportunity. So I was a leader of the ERP implementation, and he and I were still connecting because, you know, I was seconded to the project, but he was still my boss, so I still had one-on-ones with him. And I remember, like it was yesterday, you know, I'm there and I'm kind of sharing with him all the things I'm learning about the new system and how am I driving the processes and, you know, how we're getting ready. And then he looks at me and said, like, Alma, you have been given a team for the duration of the project? It's like, yeah, I got like 6 people. It's like, how are you going to make sure how are you going to make sure that you give back when time comes for these people to be back to their home departments? How are you going to make sure you send them back in, I would say, more developed and stronger professionals than how they were given to you? And you know, that stopped me on my tracks. And I said, Jim, what do you mean? Like that they report to other people? It's like, yeah, but for the span of a year, they're going to be under you. They're going to be reporting to you. So what are you going to do for their development? So that was a bit of a shock, you know, when I realized that indeed I had now people responsibilities, and I help every single one of them put together a development plan. So that was something I took to heart, and he ended up promoting me a few more times and giving me my first people leader opportunity. But he teach me how to put people first, and the results were going to follow, you know, if I could keep putting my team first. So great leader, I will say, and still a friend to this day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, you can go ahead and ask your question. Or Dania, sorry, Paul. Dania, do you have more questions?
No, I think my hand is still up. Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much, Alma. Thank you so much, Dave.
All right.
Thank you, Dania. Good to see you.
All right, Paul, please go ahead and ask your question. Hello, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, David. Hi, Alma. Thank you for a very insightful presentation and comments. I have 2 questions indeed that are kind of related, and coming as well from a Mexican professional background and comparing professional life abroad to Canada. Like, what is your perspective regarding working hours? Some people believe like longer days might be perceived as more professional people, like even working on the evenings, even working on the weekends and so on. And part of the second question is your perspective regarding job hopping versus longer term in a company. I want to have your perspective as how you might see individuals into that.
Gracias, Paul, for that question. Very insightful, very insightful questions, both of them. So let's tackle the first one. Are your boss or other peers gonna think more of you because you're working long hours? No. It's not my expectation as a leader that I'm gonna have my people working 24/7. Actually, if they were working long hours every single day, I'll be worried. I'll be worried for them. I will be worried for their, I would say, work and family balance. And I would probably pull them aside and said, you know what, like this is like, what is going on? Like, why do you have to work this many hours? Is there something that like is your plate overflowing, or like what's going on? Is something else going on? Because in reality, I'm not expecting people to work 24/7. I'm not expecting people to work on the weekends. And before the pandemic, I have to be honest, I never brought my laptop home. You know, as I left the office, I left the laptop and I left my work behind. Now, of course, I have the cell phone with the email in it, but at least I didn't purposely bring my laptop with me to continue to work. Now, the pandemic has encroached into our own personal spaces. And that made it, I would say, easier to work a bit of a longer work day. But I think I'm getting, maybe also, I was also working longer days because I ended up with a new job in February. So that's always, as you know, when you start a new job, you need to invest more time into it. But I'm getting better. I'm getting kind of my head above water with the job. So now working as many hours as the beginning. So no, I don't think that I'll get any, as long as the job is done, as long as the results are given. I was never one to watch the clock, and I had my team, I could perfectly see my team, and I saw when they left and then we came and then the time. I was never watching the clock, as long as the results are achieved. I think in this case, myself, I'm happy, I'm going to venture. I'm hoping also other employers are going to be happy about those results. And sorry, you were like just for me cutting out a little bit on the second question. And I want to make sure I get it properly. So can you just kind of give me?
For sure. Part of the second question was to have your insight regarding job hopping, people that
the job hopping.
Normally
sorry.
just get like a couple of years versus like a long-term commitment to a company.
No, I thought that's what I heard, but I wasn't sure. So yes, so on the job hopping, am I overly worried if someone has been with multiple companies for 1 year or two? That's a tough question, but in reality, I have taken a gamble. On people that on paper, they look like they were not, they were not remaining a long time in their roles. But I would probably more position it to say that at the interview, I do ask the reasons why they left. And if I feel the reasons are valid, I really don't worry. Now, ideally, you would like to end up in a company when you can grow and continue to grow within your career, but not every company can offer that, right? And that's to say this is like an Apotex plug, but indeed we have 8,000 employees, and I've been, like at least in our 4 different jobs, and I have promoted many people and move many people into different areas, so in reality, you don't have, I don't think I have to leave to continue to grow. So maybe try to land a company where you can stay within a few years, and maybe even within your current company, I will say you can ask for more opportunities, so you, Paul, continue to grow within your company, and stay a little longer, or you feel there's no more opportunities, they're not going to give you more opportunities, and your growth has stopped. That's a very valid reason to leave. And I don't think I will be overly concerned, and you can express that during the interview.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alma, for that.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Gracias, Alma.
Yeah,
okay, you need to give it to Stella. You need to, I see Stella's hand up.
Stella's.
We do not want David to get into any trouble tonight. So Stella, you go, Stella.
Okay, Alma, thank you so much. So I'm actually a big fan of Udemy. I last year I completed a course on pivot tables, and I actually pitched to my bosses saying why we need to use pivot tables, and we actually started using it in our monthly reporting. So another one I'm learning right now is Excel VBA, but I'm thinking maybe there's another tool I should focus on right now instead of Excel VBA if I want to get an analytics role.
Well, honestly, I'm already impressed. You have taken it upon yourself to educate your company, Stella, on the use of pivot tables and VBA. Good for you. You're definitely on the right track. But I would say you want to expand your knowledge and be ready for an analytics role. I would definitely look into ClickSense or Tableau. You know, those are extremely hot skills, and they will serve you well. But I wouldn't leave the VBA aside. You know, you can do a lot of cool stuff with VBA. So keep doing VBA, but on the other hand, like expand your horizons a little bit into ClickSense or Tableau.
Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. We definitely had to get that last question in. Sorry, David, for being over time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's already 7:33, and we still have questions to go. Do you have one?
I mean, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Take
like
one more question.
If like you want to go, like I don't mind.
Okay.
We can take a few more questions. I don't mind.
Okay, let me ask this final question, and then we can round it up. So the person said, I'm currently on mat leave and coming with an experience in client services, purchasing, and supply planning. What should I study or try to attain a certificate to up my game on my re-entry?
Okay, so I have to say this is a tall order because you're on mat leave. You should be enjoying your time off with the baby, but you know, you're so inclined to start looking into something to up your game. And you want to be you are already in supply chain and a supply chain professional. CSCMP, a certified supply chain professional, can be an attractive proposition. It's only one exam. Is being given by Apex, and that's again very, I would say, because you're already a supply chain professional, that's very easy to attain. The other certifications like supply chain management professional from Supply Chain Canada is an amazing certification, very deep and it will position you very well. But on the other hand, it's a 2-year commitment, and if you're saying you're on mat leave, I think you'll be better off with something that you can achieve between 3 to 6 months, and becoming a certified supply chain professional is something that you can easily achieve if you're so inclined. Otherwise, spend time with the baby.
All right, thank you so much, Alma. Thank you to everyone for taking time out on a Wednesday evening to spend with us, and also thank you, Alma, for sharing your story, your journey, and for giving back to the next generation. We really, really appreciate this. And for those people who join later, like I said at the beginning of this event, that we are starting a career accelerator boot camp. It's a free boot camp for people who are looking to get a job or people who are looking to pivot their career. So I put in the chat the interest application form. So if you're interested, please feel free. It's just a 10-second application. Just your name, your email, and the role that you are really, really interested in, and we'll be in touch with you. So because we are actually working behind the scene to put a good event together and to help as many people as possible. So once again, thank you so much. And if you're not yet a part of the Fresh Startup community, we would encourage you to join us and join what we're building, and also listen to the podcast. If you think there's more that you'd like to learn from Alma. Alma was an amazing guest on the podcast, and our episode was one of the top performing episodes. So I would encourage you. That means there's something about that episode that people really, really love, and they tell people about it. So if you haven't listened to our story on the podcast, I will strongly encourage you to go listen. And once again, thank you so much, Alma, for your support and for everything you do for the next generation. And thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. So
thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.